They say old age makes you soft, but I've learned it only makes you quiet. You stop fighting small things because you think love will notice on its own. So when my grandson Jason said, "Fly out for Christmas, Grandma, we'll take care of everything here," I thought it was love talking. It sounded like kindness. It wasn't. The cruelty came later, wrapped in the same sweet voice. It started 2 weeks before the trip. I just finished wrapping gifts in the sunroom, gold paper, velvet ribbons, each tag written in my shaky handwriting. I'd even set aside something special for Jason and his sister Lily, a pair of engraved watches that once belonged to my late husband Thomas. Jason stopped by that afternoon. 24, tall and handsome in the careless way young men are when the world has only ever said yes to them. "Wow, Grandma," he said, eyeing the boxes stacked by the tree. "You went all out this year." "I like seeing everyone happy," I told him. "It's my turn to spoil you after all the years you spoiled me with drawings and hugs." He laughed, though it didn't sound quite real. "Yeah, those hugs didn't cost much." Something in his tone made me look up. His smile was wide, but his eyes were scanning the room, the mantel, the framed photographs, the corner cabinet. The one that held my late husband's antique coin collection. I should have known right then. But when you've raised a child, and helped raise his children, you learn to confuse suspicion with guilt. He said, "You're still living alone in this big place, huh?" "I like my space," I said lightly. "Your grandpa built this house with his hands. Every wall has a memory." Jason's smile thinned. "Yeah. And a lot of money in it too, I bet." I laughed, but it didn't sound like me. "You think your grandpa left me treasure in the walls?" He shrugged. "I just mean you've done pretty well. Everyone says you're sitting on a fortune." I looked at him carefully. "Everyone." He caught himself. "You know, people talk. You've got that lake house, stocks, the safe in your study." He said it casually, but the way his eyes flicked when he said safe told the truth. I smiled softly. "Ah, that old thing? Just paperwork." He grinned. "Yeah, sure. Paperwork worth 6 figures, right?" 2 days later Lily came by. She was 22, delicate, polite, and just like her brother, too smart for her own good. "Grandma, you should come stay with us for a bit," she said, handing me a latte like a bribe wrapped in warmth. "You always spend the holidays here alone. We'll fly you out to Denver. Jason's got travel points." "That's kind," I said. "But I like being home for Christmas. I still bake for the church drive." "Grandma," she said, her voice syrup-sweet but her eyes sharp, "you need a break. You've been cooped up in this house since Grandpa died. We worry about you." I almost believed her until she added, "Besides, you shouldn't be alone with all your valuables." Valuables. The word dropped like a stone. Later that night, I called my son Mark, their father, to thank him for raising such thoughtful kids. He chuckled tiredly. "They mentioned it. Don't take it the wrong way, Mom, but you're too trusting. They just want to keep you company." "I know," I said, though my gut said otherwise. After we hung up, I went to my study and looked at the safe, the old black steel one behind the bookshelf. I'd kept everything in there, the deed to the house, my jewelry, even a few rare coins Thomas collected before he passed. And something else. Something nobody but me knew existed. A will. Not my lawyer's copy, mine. Signed, notarized, sealed. It didn't leave everything to them. When Jason called again that week, his voice was all enthusiasm. "Flights booked, Grandma. You're leaving Friday. Just a few days, okay? We'll pick you up from the airport. You can relax, no cooking, no fuss." I hesitated. "Jason, I don't like flying much." "You'll love it," he said smoothly. "And while you're gone, I'll swing by to water your plants. Don't worry, I'll lock up after." He said it like a courtesy. But in my mind, I saw his eyes dart again toward that bookshelf. "Oh, that's nice," I said, smiling into the receiver. "I'll leave the spare keys in the ceramic bowl by the entry. You know the one." He laughed. "Perfect. I'll make sure nothing happens while you're away." "I'm sure you won't," I said quietly. That night, I didn't sleep much. I sat by the fireplace with Thomas's photo on my lap, the clock ticking steady as breath. "You'd tell me if I was imagining things, wouldn't you?" I whispered to his smiling face. But silence doesn't argue. So before dawn, I opened the safe, sorted what truly mattered, and moved it elsewhere. By Friday morning, I was packed. My driver, a kind man named Robert who'd worked for me for years, lifted my suitcase into the trunk. "You sure you don't want me to lock up after you, Mrs. Whitaker?" he asked. I smiled. "No, dear. Jason has a key." He hesitated. "That boy doesn't seem the careful type." "Neither was I at 24, I said, patting his arm. "Sometimes young people need to make mistakes to remember who's watching." At the airport, I texted both Jason and Lily. "Me, boarding now. Can't wait to see you too." They responded instantly. Jason, "Safe flight, Grandma. We'll see you soon, red heart." Lily, "Bring those cookies you promised. Love you." Sweetness typed through greedy hands. As the plane ascended, I looked out the window, the world shrinking below like a secret I'd buried. They met me at the Denver terminal, hugging me tightly, smiling too hard. Jason carried my bag as if it were a trophy. Lily chattered about restaurants and shopping. For a few days, they were perfect. Attentive, warm, laughing at my stories, insisting I rest. On the third night, Jason poured me wine after dinner. "You really spoil us, Grandma," he said. "We'll have to return the favor sometime." I smiled. "Maybe one day you'll surprise me." "Oh, we will," Lily said softly. "Sooner than you think." Back home, my house waited in silence. The neighbors would later tell me they saw a car parked out front that night. They assumed it was family. They weren't wrong. Jason and Lily arrived not long after I texted them goodnight. They used the key exactly where I told them it would be, the ceramic bowl by the door. The alarm code? Well, they'd watched me punch it in enough times to guess. Inside, the house smelled faintly of lavender and old wood. Jason went straight for the study. Lily followed, flashlight in hand. "Grandma really should invest in better security," Jason murmured. Lily frowned. "You sure about this?" He smirked. "We're just borrowing. She'll never notice a few things missing." They pulled the bookshelf aside, found the black safe, and crouched. Jason had brought a small toolkit, the kind meant for hobby locks. He worked the dial, listening for clicks. It took time, but not much. When the heavy door creaked open, both of them froze. Empty shelves. No velvet pouches. No coin boxes. No envelopes. Only a single folded note sitting dead center. Jason snatched it up, irritated. "What the?" Lily read over his shoulder. "Jason, darling, you always were good with numbers. Too bad you never learned the difference between earning and taking. Love, Grandma." He stared at it, face flushing red. She knew. Lily's voice trembled. "Let's just go. Maybe she's testing us." Jason crumpled the note. "If she moved the money, we'll find it. Maybe she's got another safe." They tore through drawers, cabinets, closets. By the time they left, the house looked ransacked, except the one thing they missed. A small security camera tucked inside the grandfather clock, blinking red. Meanwhile, in Denver, I was sitting by the window of their guest room, sipping tea. My phone buzzed with a notification from the home surveillance app. "Motion detected, study. 11:47 p.m. I tapped the video. The screen showed Jason's face lit by flashlight glow, Lily's nervous figure behind him. I watched them open the safe, saw his expression twist when he found my note. My chest tightened, not from anger, but from the kind of disappointment only love can make heavy. I pressed save to device. The next morning, over breakfast, Jason asked if I wanted to visit the mall. "Maybe tomorrow," I said, buttering my toast. "I think I'll rest today. I barely slept." He laughed nervously. "Jet lag." "Or maybe my conscience," I said lightly. He froze, then forced a smile. "You and your jokes, Grandma." I smiled back, but my heart was already deciding what came next. I had given them everything, education funds, cars, even help with their first apartments. And they'd thanked me by emptying the one place I kept sacred, not for money, but for memory. If they thought that note was the end of the game, they didn't realize I had written the rules long ago. That night, when they were out running errands, I opened my travel bag. Inside, Wrapped in an old scarf, was a second envelope, not for them, but for my attorney. It contained the original surveillance footage, notarized property transfer papers, and an unsigned letter I'd prepared months ago, just in case my instincts about Jason were right. I looked at the camera feed one more time, my ransacked study, drawers open like wounds. Then I whispered to the empty room, "You wanted to play grown-up games, kids. Now watch how Grandma plays." Before I continue, let me ask you something. If your own family used your trust to steal from you, would you forgive them, or make them learn the lesson they'll never forget? Tell me in the comments. The next morning, I woke to the sound of laughter downstairs. Jason's voice, bright and practiced, the kind that could charm a room and lie to it in the same breath. He was making pancakes. Lily was scrolling her phone at the kitchen counter, pretending she wasn't anxious. When I walked in, both their smiles faltered for half a second, just enough for me to notice. "Morning, Grandma," Jason said cheerfully. "Sleep okay?" "Like a baby," I said, pouring myself coffee. "Except I didn't wake up hungry for guilt." He blinked. "What?" "Nothing, dear. Just my way of saying I'm not a breakfast person." We ate in silence. Every few minutes, Lily glanced at me like she expected me to explode, confess, or cry. I did none of the above. I just sipped my coffee, smiled softly, and studied them like a chess player counting her pieces. They didn't know I'd seen the video. They didn't know I'd saved multiple copies, one to my lawyer, one to cloud storage, one on a flash drive tucked neatly inside the lining of my purse. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger burns fast. But disappointment, that one lingers. "Jason," I said finally, setting my cup down. "Could you check my flight schedule for next week? I might head back a little early." His fork froze midair. "Already? We thought you'd stay through New Year's." "Oh, I've got a few things to handle back home," I said casually. "You know how it is, banks, lawyers, accounts." Lily's head shot up. "Lawyers?" "Yes," I said, smiling gently. "Some loose ends in my will. I just want to make sure everything goes where it belongs." Her face drained of color. Jason recovered faster. "You don't need to worry about that, Grandma. You've worked hard your whole life. Just enjoy your money. We'll handle the boring stuff later." "I'm sure you will," I said softly. That afternoon, while they went shopping, I called my attorney, Mr. Carmichael, a man who'd been with my family since before Jason was born. "Margaret," he said warmly when he answered. "I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon. Is everything all right?" "I'm afraid not," I said quietly. "But I know how to fix it." I told him everything, the key, the break-in, the note, the footage. There was silence on the other end before he spoke again, voice measured. "I always knew you were the sharpest in your family," he said finally. "What would you like to do?" "I'd like to teach a lesson," I said. "Not with anger, with consequences." He chuckled softly. "You have something in mind?" "Oh, several things," I said. "But first, I want to make a few legal adjustments." By the time I hung up, I'd arranged 3 things. My will would be rewritten, excluding Jason and Lily entirely. A trust fund in their names would be frozen for pending review. Copies of the footage would be notarized and dated as evidence. But I wasn't finished. Some lessons, after all, must be learned in person. That evening, I asked Jason to drive me to the city center. He agreed eagerly, maybe hoping I'd buy him something grandma expensive. The car smelled faintly of his cologne and Lily's perfume, sweet and false. "Where are we headed?" he asked. "Downtown," I said. "I want to get something appraised." He perked up. "Jewelry?" "Something like that." We pulled into a tall glass building, my bank. Inside, the marble floors gleamed. The receptionist greeted me by name. "Mrs. Whitaker," she said warmly, "how lovely to see you again." Jason's eyebrows rose. "They know you here?" "I've had this account since before you were born," I said. When I approached the desk, I lowered my voice. "I'd like to open a secondary account and transfer the contents of my existing safe deposit box, in person." Jason's smile tightened. "Safe deposit box?" "Yes, dear," I said kindly. "The one I've had for decades. I think I'll move its contents somewhere, safer." He laughed awkwardly. You don't trust the bank? I don't trust people who use spare keys without asking, I said, watching his face pale. The banker blinked, glancing between us. Should I come back later? No, I said calmly. This is perfect timing. Jason laughed again, too loud. You're joking, right? Do I look like I'm joking? For the first time, he had no answer. While the banker fetched the documents, I turned to him. You know, Jason, your grandfather once told me, if you ever catch someone stealing, don't shout. Smile, because they just revealed who they are. He shifted in his seat, jaw tight. I don't know what you think you saw, Grandma. I don't think, I interrupted gently. I know. The banker returned, handing me the transfer papers. I signed them neatly, slid them back, and turned to Jason. Do me a favor, I said. Call Lily. Tell her to clean up my study. I imagine it's a bit of a mess. His throat worked. How did you? I have eyes, I said, meeting his gaze. Even when I'm not home. He didn't say another word on the ride back. When we got to the house, Lily was on the phone, her voice frantic before she even saw me. Grandma. You won't believe it, someone broke into your house while you were gone. I smiled faintly. Is that so? Yes, she said, hands trembling as she gestured. They tore everything apart. The safe was open. I nodded slowly. And what did they take? Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe, I said. Or maybe they just found something they weren't supposed to. Jason walked in behind me, silent, his face pale as paper. I sat down on the couch, folded my hands, and looked at both of them. You know, I said softly, when I was your age, I thought being clever meant outsmarting people. Then I learned the cleverest people don't need to. They just wait for others to trip over their own lies. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Grandma, please. I raised a hand. Don't. I'm not angry. I'm just done pretending you're the people I raised. They stood there in silence, shame hanging thick in the air. Now, I said, I'd appreciate it if you both left my house before you break something else you can't fix. Lily burst into tears, mumbling apologies as she gathered her bag. Jason stayed frozen, his jaw clenched, eyes burning with something between anger and humiliation. You think you're teaching us a lesson, he said quietly. But all you've done is push us away. I met his stare evenly. No, Jason. You did that the moment you used my key. He turned and walked out without another word. That night, I called Mr. Carmichael again. It's done, I told him. They know I know. Good, he said. Shall I proceed with the rest? Yes, I said. Let's make it official. 2 days later, Jason and Lily received letters from his office. I didn't need to be there to see their faces when they opened them. Each letter began politely, legal language wrapped in courtesy, and ended coldly. As of this date, Margaret Whittaker has amended her estate plan. All direct inheritances formerly designated to Jason and Lily Whittaker have been reassigned to charitable causes and educational funds in the Whittaker Family Foundation. Jason called within an hour. You're cutting us off? He shouted into the phone. No, I said evenly. I'm setting you free. From greed. From entitlement. From the illusion that my love was measured in dollars. He cursed under his breath. You're unbelievable. I used to believe in you, I said. Now we're even. For the first time in days, I slept soundly. But peace is rarely the end of a story, especially when pride is wounded. The next morning, Robert, my driver, called. Mrs. Whittaker, I don't want to alarm you, but your grandson was outside your gate earlier. He didn't come in, just sat there in his car for a while. My stomach tightened. Did he leave? Yes, ma'am. But he looked angry. Real angry. I thanked him and hung up. That evening, I watched my front cameras. Sure enough, there he was, parked just down the street, engine idling. I thought about calling the police, but something in me hesitated. Maybe I needed him to see what losing integrity looked like up close. So I did something he didn't expect. I turned on the porch light, walked outside, and waved. His eyes widened. Then I walked straight to his car. He rolled down the window, jaw tight. "You're really enjoying this, huh?" "I'm not enjoying anything," I said calmly. "I'm surviving. You should try it without stealing next time." He laughed bitterly. "You don't get it. You have everything. You've always had everything. We just wanted a piece of what's ours." "What's yours?" I repeated softly. "You didn't earn a dime of it. Not one." His hands clenched the steering wheel. "You think this is over?" I smiled faintly. "Oh, Jason. It's only just beginning." That night, I added one final measure to my plan. If greed was what broke them, then generosity would finish the job. The next morning, I went to the local newspaper. I placed an announcement under the Community and Legacy section. The Whitaker Family Foundation is proud to sponsor full scholarships for underprivileged students in honor of Thomas and Margaret Whitaker. Established through the former inheritance funds of Jason and Lily Whitaker. The article went live the next day. By noon, the phone started ringing. My son called first, furious and embarrassed. Then Lily texted, begging me to take it down. Jason didn't call at all. He just showed up. It was sunset when I heard the knock. I opened the door to find him standing there, hands in pockets, eyes bloodshot. "You humiliated us," he said. "No," I said softly. "You did that yourselves. I just made sure the world saw what I saw." His voice cracked. "You don't understand how hard life is for people my age." "Oh, I do," I said. "I just never stole my way out of it." For a long moment, we stood there, me in my doorway, him on the porch. The sun behind him threw his shadow long across my floor. "You can still fix this," I said quietly. "Not with money. With honesty." He didn't answer. Just turned and walked away. I watched his car disappear down the street, the same way I'd watched every good thing in him drive off long before this week. I once read that betrayal doesn't end when the thief leaves, it ends when you stop bleeding. By the time the local paper printed my story about the foundation, I thought the bleeding had finally stopped. I was wrong. The first sign came quietly, a phone call from my bank. "Mrs. Whitaker," the manager said politely, "just confirming, did you request a duplicate of your debit card yesterday?" I frowned. "No, I did not." A pause. "That's what I thought. Someone called pretending to be your grandson. We caught it before the request went through." My fingers tightened around the receiver. "Jason." "We can't confirm, ma'am," the banker said carefully, "but the caller knew your account type and security question answers. We've frozen your online access temporarily." I thanked him and hung up, my hand shaking. It was starting again. I checked my emails next. 2 unread messages glared at me, one from my energy provider, one from my insurance company, both confirming requested address changes. I felt the color drain from my face. Someone wasn't done playing. I called Mr. Carmichael, my attorney. "They're trying to ruin me on paper," I said flatly. "My bank, my utilities, everything." He sighed. "Jason's too proud to let go quietly. But don't worry, Margaret. You covered yourself well. Legally, he can't touch a cent. I'll make sure of it." "I'm not worried about the money," I said softly. "I'm worried about what anger can do when pride's hungry." That night, I double-checked my locks, closed the curtains, and sat in my study with a cup of chamomile tea. The clock ticked softly, steady as an old heartbeat. I looked up at the monitor showing my home cameras, front gate, driveway, backyard, study. Everything was quiet. Until 1:17 a.m. A shadow moved across the driveway. The motion alert pinged on my phone, Jason's car. He stood there in the dark, staring up at my house like a stranger. Then the front gate rattled. My heart pounded, but I didn't move. I wanted to see what he'd do, how far he'd go. He didn't climb it. He just stood there, pacing, muttering to himself. Then he pulled out his phone, took a few photos of my house, and left. I exhaled slowly, but the unease didn't leave with him. The next morning, I printed out the security footage and drove straight to Mr. Carmichael's office. He met me in the conference room, gray suit pressed, calm as always. "Still think he's just angry?" I asked, sliding the printouts across the table. He looked them over. I think he's desperate. And desperate people either disappear, or they escalate. Then we plan for escalation, I said firmly. I've been naive once. Never again. Together, we arranged a few precautions. My property lines were rezoned with security notifications. My estate lawyer filed an official protection of assets order. And most importantly, I opened a new private account, one Jason could never trace. But that wasn't enough for me. Because some lessons need to be delivered face to face. That weekend, I invited them both, Jason and Lily, for one last family dinner. They hesitated to reply. I didn't blame them. Finally, Lily texted, Jason says it's a bad idea, but I'll come. He might too. Perfect. I cooked for hours that Sunday, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, cornbread, all the things they loved when they were young. The smell of rosemary filled the house, familiar and heavy with memory. When the doorbell rang, my hands didn't tremble. Lily stood there first, looking smaller than I remembered. Behind her, Jason lingered by the walkway, expression guarded. Come in, I said gently. Lily stepped inside, clutching a small tin of cookies. I thought maybe we could talk. I was hoping we would, I said. Dinner's ready. Jason followed reluctantly, his hands shoved into his pockets, eyes scanning the room. Still got your cameras up, he muttered. Always, I said. They make me feel safe. He smirked. Safe from who? You tell me, I replied softly. We sat at the table, the same one where I used to teach them how to write their names. The candles flickered between us, and for a few minutes, there was peace. Then Jason broke it. So what's this about? You want to scold us again? Or maybe record another speech for your newspaper friends? I set down my fork. I want you to understand something before you destroy yourself entirely. Destroy myself? He laughed bitterly. You already did that. You took everything from me. No, I said. You took it from yourself. I just stopped pretending you deserved it. His eyes flashed. You think you're righteous? You think giving our inheritance to strangers makes you noble? Not strangers, I said quietly. Kids who won't steal from the people who love them. Lily winced. Grandma, please. No, Jason snapped. Let her talk. Let her feel superior one more time. I sighed. Jason, superiority is expensive. Humility's free. You should try it. He slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses rattle. You think this is funny? You humiliated us. I can't show my face anywhere without people whispering that we robbed our own grandmother. Did you? I asked softly. He froze. You know we didn't take anything. I leaned forward, meeting his eyes. Exactly. Because I didn't leave anything for you to take. The silence that followed was thick, electric. Then, very quietly, Jason stood. You'll regret this, he said. You think the world will believe your version forever? You'll slip up, and when you do. I cut him off gently. Jason, sit down. He hesitated, and for the first time, I saw something flicker behind his anger. Fear. Because he didn't know what I knew. I reached into the drawer beside me and pulled out a small black folder. Inside was a stack of printed pages, notarized, signed, stamped. I slid them across the table. Read. He frowned, flipping through them. His face drained as he recognized the letterhead, Whitaker Family Foundation. What is this? He said. Your future, I said. Or what's left of it. It wasn't just the scholarship program anymore. It was a full press release, listing him and Lily by name as former beneficiaries of the Whitaker estate, now reassigned for community betterment. He looked up, furious. You published this? Not yet, I said softly. Tomorrow morning. Unless you undo what you've been trying to do. He swallowed. What are you talking about? The fake card requests. The account breaches. The insurance changes. Stop them. Or I'll make sure everyone, from your job to your landlord, knows what kind of man you are. His jaw clenched. You wouldn't. I smiled faintly. Jason, I've already done more than you thought I could. You should probably stop underestimating me. He pushed away from the table, storming out. The door slammed. Lily sat frozen, tears sliding down her cheeks. I didn't know he was doing that, she whispered. I told him to stop after the safe. I believe you, I said gently. But belief doesn't clean up broken trust. Actions do. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I'll fix it. Somehow. Start by finding who you are without him, I said softly. That'll be a start. That night, I expected quiet. Instead, I got chaos. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Motion detected, garage door. My heart jumped. I opened the live feed. Jason. He'd come back. This time, he wasn't pacing. He was inside. I pressed the panic button on my alarm panel. A shrill siren split the night. Jason froze on the camera, startled, then bolted. Within minutes, red and blue lights filled my driveway. The officers searched the property, found the side door forced open. Nothing taken. They asked if I knew the intruder. Yes, I said quietly. My grandson. They exchanged glances. Would you like to press charges? I thought about it. About love, loyalty, and lessons. Finally, I nodded. Yes. Just this once. By dawn, Jason was in custody. They found his fingerprints on the door handle, and worse, a can of gasoline in his trunk. The officer told me calmly, looks like he planned to scare you. Maybe vandalize the place. But you got lucky, ma'am. Lucky. That's what they called it. I didn't feel lucky. I felt old. Lily came by later that morning, her face pale and streaked with tears. Please, she begged. Drop the charges. He's not thinking straight. I know, I said quietly. That's why he needs to face something that might make him think. She sobbed into her hands. He's my brother. And my grandson, I said softly. And maybe this is the only thing left I can give him, a reason to change. By the next day, it was everywhere. Local heir arrested in attempted break-in at grandmother's estate. Reporters called. The neighbors whispered. But for once, I didn't hide. I gave one short statement. When trust is broken, love doesn't die, it just demands accountability. The quote ran in 3 papers. That night, I sat by the fireplace, staring at the flames dancing across the logs. I thought of the boy who used to help me decorate Christmas cookies, who'd laugh when flour dusted his nose. I thought of the young man who'd turned that laughter into arrogance. And I thought of the woman I used to be, the one who would have forgiven him instantly. She was gone. In her place sat someone quieter. Stronger. Someone who knew that love without boundaries isn't love, it's surrender. When you've lived long enough, you learn that silence has 2 faces. One comforts you. The other haunts you. The days after Jason's arrest were filled with both. I didn't go to the courthouse. I didn't want to see him in handcuffs. Instead, I sat in my kitchen by the window, watching the snow drift across the yard like old memories that refused to settle. The phone rang every hour, reporters, neighbors, concerned friends. They all wanted a comment, a quote, a headline. I gave them none. Because this wasn't about spectacle anymore. It was about a family that had mistaken kindness for weakness, and a woman who had finally decided to remind them she was neither. On the 3rd morning, my son Mark showed up unannounced. He didn't knock. He just walked in, jaw tight, coat still dusted with snow. Mom, he said, his voice sharp. What the hell happened? I looked up from my coffee. You read the papers. You tell me. He tossed his gloves on the counter. You pressed charges against my son. My son, Mom. I sighed. Your son broke into my home with gasoline in his trunk. What would you have done? Offered him cocoa. He blinked, taken aback by my tone. He wasn't going to hurt you. You're sure? I asked quietly. Because the police weren't. He opened his mouth, then shut it. I stood, smoothing my cardigan. Mark, I know you love him. I do too. But love doesn't erase responsibility. He raked a hand through his thinning hair. You've humiliated this family. No, I said softly. Jason did that when he forgot what family meant. He stared at me, torn between fury and shame. He's just lost, Mark said finally. He made mistakes. Then it's time he learns that mistakes have weight. Mom. I held up a hand. Do you remember when you were 10, and you broke your father's fishing rod? He frowned. Barely. He made you pay for it with your allowance for 3 months, I said. Not because of the rod, but because he wanted you to respect what wasn't yours. That's what I'm doing now. Except Jason's debt is much heavier. Mark sank into a chair, defeated. You always have to win, don't you? I smiled sadly. This isn't a win, son. This is survival. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the fireplace, the flames reflecting in the glass photo frames on the mantel. Thomas, me, Mark as a boy, Jason and Lily as children, all frozen in a world that still believed we were happy. The world outside my window had turned cold and sharp. The world inside my house had turned quiet, too quiet. But even quiet things have echoes. The next morning, Lily called. Her voice was small. They're letting him out today. He posted bail. I see. He wants to see you. I stared at the window pane, watching frost climb its edges like veins. Does he now? Yes, she said softly. He said he needs to apologize. Please, Grandma. Just once. You don't have to forgive him, just hear him. I hesitated. Then finally I said, tell him to come tomorrow. Noon. That night, I prepared the house like I was expecting ghosts. I cleaned the study, dusted the frames, and lit the fireplace in the living room. I even brewed tea, chamomile for me, black for him. By the time morning came, I had aged 5 years in one night. At noon, the doorbell rang. Jason stood there, thinner, hollow-eyed, the spark of arrogance replaced by something smaller. Regret. He didn't speak at first. Just stepped inside, hat in hand, eyes darting around like he didn't belong there anymore. I motioned toward the chair across from me. Sit. He obeyed quietly. For a moment, we just listened to the ticking of the old clock. Then he said, barely above a whisper, I'm sorry. I didn't speak. I messed up, he continued. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I thought you didn't care anymore. That you were ready to, go. And we'd be left with nothing. Nothing. I asked softly. After I paid your tuition? After I helped you buy your first car? After I bailed your father out of his business loan? If that's nothing, Jason, then tell me what enough looks like to you. He stared at the floor. I don't know. Yes, you do, I said. You just don't want to say it out loud, because enough means more. It always has with you. He clenched his jaw. You're right, he said finally. I wanted more. I thought, if I had more, people would respect me. But instead, I ruined everything. I sighed. Respect isn't earned by what you take. It's earned by what you protect. He looked up, eyes wet. I don't deserve forgiveness. No, I said quietly. You don't. He blinked, stunned. But, I added, you can still earn it. He frowned. How? By doing something good with your hands instead of your lies. I handed him an envelope from the table. He looked confused. Inside was a printed application for the Whitaker Foundation's Community Apprenticeship Program, the very one I'd created from his former inheritance. You want me to work there, I finished. Volunteer. Learn what real value feels like. He looked at me, stunned. You'd let me work for that charity? After everything. I'm not letting you, I said. I'm giving you a choice. The same one I gave you years ago, when you were 12 and stole $5 from my purse. Back then, you chose truth over pride. Let's see if you still can. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then, quietly, he nodded. All right, he said. I'll do it. I smiled faintly. We'll see. He stood, pocketing the paper. Thank you, he said quietly. I mean it this time. I nodded once. Then make it mean something. He turned to go, but before he reached the door I said, Jason. He stopped. If you ever use another key of mine, I said softly, make sure it's to open a door, not steal from one. He gave a small, broken laugh. Deal. Then he left. That night, the snow began to fall again, soft, thick, endless. I sat by the window, sipping my tea, wondering if redemption could really grow in the soil of betrayal. Maybe it could. Maybe it couldn't. But at least I'd planted the seed. A week later, Lily stopped by. She looked better, He started at the foundation, she said, smiling faintly. He's helping with donation sorting. The director said he's quiet, polite, and early every morning. I raised an eyebrow. Early? Now that's a miracle. She laughed softly. He said he's trying to prove he can be different. I nodded, smiling into my cup. Good. We could all use a little proof once in a while. That evening, I received an unexpected letter in the mail. It was from the police department. Charges against Jason Whittaker have been formally dropped, per your signed withdrawal of complaint. I'd forgotten I'd mailed that form 3 days ago. I hadn't told anyone, not even Mr. Carmichael. Because forgiveness, like revenge, is most powerful when it's silent. The next morning, I stopped by the foundation. The young receptionist smiled brightly. Mrs. Whittaker. What an honor. I waved modestly. Just came to check on things. In the back I saw him, sorting boxes, sleeves rolled up, hair mussed, moving with quiet purpose. He didn't see me. But for the first time, I didn't need him to. I watched him lift, sort, carry. He looked like his grandfather in that moment, not in the face, but in the way he finally seemed grounded. I turned to leave, my chest heavy in the best way. Outside, the cold air bit at my cheeks, but it didn't sting. Lily walked beside me, linking her arm through mine. Grandma, she said softly, do you think he'll ever be the same again? I smiled faintly. No. I think he'll be better. That night, I sat by the fire again, just like I had on all those lonely nights before. Only this time, the silence felt different. It wasn't haunting anymore. It was peace. I looked up at the photo of Thomas on the mantel. You'd be proud, I whispered. I didn't lose my temper. I just reminded them who raised them. The house creaked softly in reply, like approval from the past. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It just lets you stop living there. For weeks after Jason began working at the foundation, the house was quiet again. Not the uneasy quiet from before, but the kind that fills a room with peace instead of regret. Every morning I'd sit by the kitchen window with my tea and watch the sunrise climb over the pines. It looked new every day, like life was trying to apologize for all the nights it kept me awake. I had started painting again. Little things at first, still lives, the lake, sometimes the old house from memory. The colors helped me remember there was still beauty left in the world, even after all the ugly parts. One afternoon the phone rang. Mrs. Whittaker? It was Claire, the director of the foundation. I just wanted to tell you, Jason's been exceptional. He stays late, helps the kids with their applications. I think you might have saved him. I smiled faintly. I didn't save him, dear. I just gave him a mirror. She laughed softly. Well, he's using it. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, looking at the phone in my hand, feeling the quiet weight of relief. A week later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Jason stood there, holding a small wooden box. He looked different, tired, humbled, but cleaner somehow. I wanted to return this, he said, holding out the box. Inside was the gold watch I'd once meant to give him, the one that had belonged to his grandfather. I had moved it from the safe to a drawer in my bedroom before the trip, and somehow he'd found it. I was going to pawn it, he admitted. That night. Before I saw your note. I thought it would make everything easier. But every time I looked at it, it just reminded me how small I'd become. I nodded slowly. You could have kept it. He shook his head. Not yet. Maybe someday if I earn it. We sat by the fireplace, the same place where all of this had begun to unravel. He told me about his work at the foundation, how he'd started mentoring some of the boys who reminded him of himself. How one of them had just gotten accepted to college. I don't know why you gave me another chance, he said. I didn't deserve it. Maybe not, I said. But I didn't do it for you. I did it for the boy you used to be. I had to believe he was still somewhere in there. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw it, the boy with flour on his nose, laughing in my kitchen years ago. Later, Lily joined us. She'd been helping with the charity's social media, organizing fundraisers. "Grandma, people are donating like crazy," she said. The story inspired them. I chuckled. Imagine that, my scandal turning into a sermon. She grinned. "A good one." The three of us sat there for a while, letting the fire talk for us. Sometimes love doesn't need words. That night, after they left, I pulled out my old journal. The one I used to write in when Thomas was alive. I turned to a blank page and wrote, "Betrayal taught me the difference between generosity and boundaries. Forgiveness taught me the difference between peace and surrender. And love taught me that the best revenge is becoming unbreakable." I closed the book and placed it on the mantel beside Thomas's picture. He seemed to be smiling in the flicker of the firelight. The following Sunday, I went to church for the first time in months. People whispered when I walked down the aisle, but I didn't mind. Let them talk. When the priest spoke about mercy, I didn't bow my head out of guilt. I lifted it, because I finally understood what mercy really was. Not weakness. Not forgetfulness. Mercy was control. It was choosing peace when anger begged louder. A few days later, I got another call, from the police officer who had handled Jason's case. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said, "I just wanted to let you know the file's been officially closed. Clean record. You sure about that decision?" "Yes," I said. "He's already serving his sentence. Every day he gets up and faces himself." The officer chuckled. "Wish all justice worked that way." "So do I said quietly. Spring came early that year. The snow melted from the porch railings, and the lake out back shimmered again. I started walking there every morning, the path lined with new green shoots that hadn't dared show themselves all winter. Sometimes Lily joined me. Sometimes Jason did. Sometimes neither. It didn't matter. I wasn't walking toward them anymore. I was walking toward myself. A few months later, the foundation held a dinner to honor its volunteers. They asked me to speak. I hadn't stood behind a microphone in decades, but that night, I did. The ballroom was warm and golden, full of laughter and soft piano music. Jason and Lily sat near the back. I stepped up to the podium and said, "When people hear the word family, they think of love. But love without honesty isn't family, it's performance. This foundation was built out of a broken moment. But broken things, if handled gently, can hold more light than before. To everyone who's ever been betrayed, remember this: kindness should have walls, but those walls don't have to be prisons. Let people learn. Let yourself heal. And never confuse your worth with what anyone tries to take from you." When I finished, the room was quiet for a moment before the applause began. I caught Jason wiping his eyes. That was enough. After the event, as I was leaving, Jason handed me an envelope. "Just something small," he said shyly. Inside was a photo of us at the foundation, surrounded by the scholarship kids. On the back, he'd written, "Thank you for not giving up on me when I gave up on myself." I smiled. "You're welcome, dear. But remember, second chances are earned every day." He nodded. "I know. That's why I'm showing up tomorrow too." When I got home, the moonlight poured through the living room window, silver on the floorboards. The old safe was still there behind the bookshelf. I hadn't moved it. But it wasn't empty anymore. Inside were new things: letters from the foundation kids, thank you notes from strangers, little pieces of proof that good can grow from ruin. I locked it gently and whispered, "Some secrets are worth keeping." The next morning, I woke to birds outside and the smell of rain. I brewed my coffee, opened the curtains, and felt something I hadn't felt in years: lightness. Maybe this is what freedom feels like, I thought. Not escaping others, but escaping the weight of their choices. I stepped outside, the air cool against my skin, and watched the sunrise. For the first time, I didn't need anyone to stand beside me to feel complete. I had myself. And that was enough. Before I close my story, let me ask you something. If forgiveness meant giving someone the chance to rebuild, not for your sake, but for theirs, would you do it? Or would you keep the door locked forever? Tell me in the comments.